the lease is really an important tool to help companies meet their ESG goals, right? Because if owners and tenants aren't working together, it's going to be really hard to be able to meet some of those goals that we have today, like net zero, science-based targets, and particularly some of the building performance standards that we have, going throughout the country right now.
Joining me today is Marla Thalheimer, Senior Director of Business Engagement with the Institute for Market Transformation. Marla, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Delighted to be here.
Now, can you start by summarizing IMT's mission?
Absolutely. So IMT, or Institute for Market Transformation, we are a national nonprofit based out of Washington, D.C. And IMT's mission is really to drive the demand for high-performance buildings. And we define high-performance buildings as those buildings that are efficient, resilient, healthy, and equitable, because all people deserve good buildings to live, work, and play. So we're really focused on driving that push for high-performance building throughout the country. And we also believe that buildings can be part of the solution to climate change, moving from part of the problem to part of the solution. So we're trying to help building owners do that.
Now, how have you seen green leasing evolve over the past, say, 5 to 10 years?
So, and I'm glad you said 10 years, because Green Lease Leaders is a program that we run with the Department of Energy. And this next cycle that will start in the fall and will be the 2024 winners is the 10th year of Green Lease Leaders. So this has definitely been around for 10 years, so it's not new. But I will say that the one common thread through all along has been about owner and tenant collaboration, right, versus the typical sort of adversarial, leasing negotiation. So back in the early days, it was really about some of the basic clauses like data sharing. Data sharing has just always been a thing. And that cost recovery clause, because again, it's important for owners to be able to, pass through cost for any measures that the tenant might benefit from the energy savings. So that's kind of where we started. It's really interesting now as we just, 10 years later, the lease is really an important tool to help companies meet their ESG goals, right? Because if owners and tenants aren't working together, it's going to be really hard to be able to meet some of those goals that we have today, like net zero, science-based targets, and particularly some of the building performance standards that we have, going throughout the country right now.
And picking up on that, why is performance leasing so important to REITs that are trying to achieve carbon reductions and or meet local building performance standards?
Yeah, I mean, some of these requirements, they're challenging, right? And whether it's a voluntary, method through a goal, or whether it's, being imposed through a regulatory environment, buildings have to meet some pretty rigorous goals and performance requirements. And if you're not engaging your tenant, there's just no way you're going to get there, right? And one of the other things that I want to make sure and mention is, just to kind of connect the dots here. Previously, we started out in the green lease language as mostly for offices, right? Like those office multi-tenant environments. And over the years, it's like everybody can have a green lease now, whether you're industrial with that triple net tenant, multifamily, retail, right? Every sector needs those green leasing requirements. So now as we're heading into this new sort of Wild West of ESG and all the requirements, really being able to work with your tenants and work together to come out with outcomes that are going to be positive, right? Positive both for the landlord and positive for the tenant. Take a couple of examples. Like if I just had a conversation about this scenario the other day, a triple net lease tenant. Well, the owner's kind of, has the attitude, we can't do anything, but, because the tenant controls it, but what if we get the fine? Like, we got to pass it back through. It's like, well, if you don't have that conversation with the tenant so they know that they understand there's a requirement, because again, if you're just finding out about it as a landlord, the tenant probably doesn't know about it, and they're not going to be happy just about all of a sudden a big fine come through the door. But yet, if you can have those conversations, figure out what's fair, figure out how to work together to, again, create that win-win outcome, to make the building meet the target, to help the tenant be happy. And lots of tenants have their own goals now that they're trying to meet as well. So that's what performance-based leasing, or our friends at JLL just put out a few months ago a report called Green Leasing 2.0. Really recommend that report because it's that same concept of getting our buildings to the next level, which everybody's working on, but without using the lease as a main tool to help drive that, it's going to be hard to meet those goals ultimately.
Great. And finally, for someone watching this who didn't come to REITworks, what would you say they missed out on, and why should they consider to come to events like this in the future?
I've been coming to REITworks for a long time and have missed the last few years, and I'm so happy to be back because I tell you, it's just so great to be with people who are have the same challenges, have the same opportunities, to be able to have those conversations with, how are you doing this and how are you doing this? And it's just so valuable, such time well spent. The sessions are great, so not only are you learning from those conversations, but it's just being together with people who are all in the ESG space, working together. We're all rowing the boat in the same direction, so just having those conversations and learning from each other is just such a big piece of the puzzle. And I know my batteries get recharged every time we have these kind of conversations, so really highly recommend it.